I will be a president for all South Africans.
Well, today the focus of the SA inauguration took place of President Elect Cyril Ramaphosa, which coincided with Africa Day. From a beautiful SANDF display to who was in attendance and who was not, and to MCC or to not MCC, Bubbles darling, we have all for you here on our social media that we've been having a look specifically at the SA inauguration. I am joined, of course, by social media expert Yavi Munrai. Very good to have you in studio once again.
Thank you. Happy Africa Day.
Thank you. Happy Africa Day to you. Well, with that being said, let's actually have a look at the many hashtags that we saw trend today. It was not just one in specific.
So there were 11 in total, if you can believe that. But I think the most important ones was hashtag SA Inauguration 19. People's inauguration actually started yesterday with the people starting the inauguration. So it wasn't started off at the presidency. South Africa, President Ramaphosa, all of the normal suspects, shall we say, were in the top. Mbeki, you know, as people arrived and people had something to say about everyone, that is how the hashtag started playing out. So it really was, well, now we're on Africa Day, so let's go back. So as you know, the inauguration, Ramaphosa decided to be able to have their inauguration today on Africa Day. So people came out in their numbers. Look, from an Africa Day perspective, there was other things happening in Africa. So just in terms of what was going on, this is the kind of stats in terms of the exposure. So if we look at the exposure, this is what it was from a South African perspective. And I think it was from a dress perspective, from a culture. People were all over trying to understand deeper what it means to be African.
Oh, all right. Let's have a look at some of the other stats that have come through with those many hashtags. The People's Inauguration, which was also trending yesterday, where the president had actually urged people, specifically on Twitter, to come forth and say what sort of inauguration and what sort of South Africa that they would want going forward.
So stepping out of the norm, they had the inauguration at Loftus as opposed to the Union Buildings, which was the first change. So hashtag People's Inauguration started to trend yesterday. This is just in the last 24 hours or today basically. So it started out by it being very much about the people. He wanted people to attend and not just the dignitaries that normally do attend. So it really was, for the first time in South Africa, a people's inauguration. If we look at the next graphics, if we look at some of the other graphics that were trending in relation to the people's, we the people. So yesterday was a hashtag called We the People, and it was all about, dear Mr. President, we the people want A, B, and C. If we look at this in terms of today, hashtag South Africa, and this is what people were adding to the inauguration trend, was very much around we are South Africa. So when we look at it in terms of the exposure, it wasn't the biggest, but it was significant. This was the #1 trend today when it came to the inauguration. You can see the exposure is massive. And I think so first of all, inauguration when you have a hashtag like inauguration on its own, without having the SA and the 19, it could have been an American inauguration, it could have been any inauguration, because remember, at Banks. So this was for today. So inviting people to Loftus really extended the reach, really extended the exposure, and Ramaphosa was everywhere in South Africa today.
All right, with that being said, let's have a look at what people had to say on Twitter. We're going to take it to the Twitter streets, specifically Mandisa. She was trending today, the first ever black female pilot.
Yeah, so I tweeted out today that it was the President's Day, but she stole the show. So it was announced that she was one of the fighter pilots in the Hawk formation. As you said, she's South Africa's first black combat fighter pilot. So what a proud moment. And people, she really did steal the show, because people just went out in awe. You know, we can show our daughters what it looks like now. It's not just about talking about it. And then some of the other stories that obviously...
Zuma was not there.
Zuma didn't
Twitter,
attend.
of course, were wild that Zuma was not in attendance today.
The memes, And then also the video when he was at Pietermaritzburg, when he was making the comments. So people were reading between the lines, what he was saying, what he was not saying, and obviously the issue about his legal fees, it just compounded it. So it was a very, very interesting Zoomer sub-conversation.
Yeah. And then lastly, to MCC or to not, well, there we have it, that meme coming through there from Man's Not Barry Roo saying that Jacob Zuma will not attend Cyril Ramaphosa's inauguration ceremony because he's too worried about his legal troubles. Going to Loftus Flashbart is the last thing on his mind. And of course, to MCC or to not MCC, that was the big question this week, wasn't it?
The big question.
So, of course, we do know that Bonang and the President Cyril Ramaphosa had a conversation before he got elected and whatnot, before elections. And of course, then she announced that she would be the official MCC sponsor for the inauguration. However, Fikile Mbalula came forward saying that this is not true.
He did, and he did so in his usual Mbalula style by making a big comment about it. And while we're on the topic of Mbalula, that's the new look for the inauguration
so Twitter
today.
was quite happy that he cleaned his look up for a new President-elect's inauguration. But also just to clarify, it then did come out that she was in fact going to be giving her MCC. However, they did not want the focus to be around that, but rather on the President-elect and of course his inauguration.
Yeah. Of course, as it should be.
Well, of course, there's so much more coming up. We're going to be giving you just a little bit more coming up in our 7 p.m. bulletin. More on Africa Day, more on the SA inauguration. For now, though, we're going to have a look at your weather forecast.